Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Wednesday, June 7th, 2017. Can I have the roll call, please?
Dan Carey.
Present.
Peg Coniff. Salem Derby.
Present.
Jennifer Hayes.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
Here.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Dan Risk.
Here.
Tamara Smith.
Here.
Joy Winnie.
Okay, we'll please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I think I said it. Have approval for the minutes of May 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second for approval of the minutes of May 17th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? Okay, motion still passes. Public speak time. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to address the council for any topic other than what's listed on the public hearings? This is your time. If you could please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, not saying anything. Communications from elected officials, boards, and committees and correspondence. Councilor Derby.
Yeah, we did receive the fiscal year 2018 Retirement Board operations budget. And we also received a letter from Attorney Fitzgibbon responding to Attorney Newman's letter regarding the East Hampton Safe City Ordinance. And if anybody's interested in reading that letter, it is available online and in the city clerk's office. It's part of tonight's packet that you can find online.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Communications, Mayor Cadger.
Thank you. So I know I thanked the counselors at the last meeting, but I just wanted to state it again. Thank you for doing an emergency meeting last week so that you could schedule the public hearings tonight on these two transfers. Our departments and I greatly appreciate it. And again, everybody working together to get something done is how we get everything done. I also wanted to mention that regarding the schools, the only update that is available right now is that we're in the middle. Still, the investigations are ongoing. The reports are expected by hopefully the end of this month, which is June, and then the reports will be shared, with the committees and the public. And I'm assuming, Salem, that you're going to announce about the cultural chaos is this week. You usually do all the announcements.
Yep.
That this
Cultural chaos is this Saturday.
Good job.
Is that good?
What you should have said.
So, and that's 12 to 7, and then it's Art Walk is right after that. But also 12 to 5. But also what I wanted to mention too is the paddle boats, the ribbon cutting is also at 11. So anybody interested in that, hopefully that'll be very exciting. And that's all I have. I know you have a packed meeting with a lot of things on it, so I won't take up any more of your time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
under communications, if I could just make an
Oh,
announcement.
sure, yes, of course.
The school building committee continues to meet, and so I just want to update the council as a city council representative on that committee. We met last night, and we have a public forum scheduled for Tuesday, June 27th at 7 p.m. and that'll be here. And we want to spread the word, get as many people in, and get as much feedback from the community as we can as we continue moving along in the project.
Great,
And
thank
there's
you.
another one tentatively scheduled for July 11th, but definitely June 27th.
Okay, that's important. Thank you for that information. Standing committees, just we're going to go a little bit out of order. We're going to go to property first. Councilor Kwasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. As folks know, the Cook Road area is right over our Barnes Aquifer, and the property in Southampton. And we've been working, I guess Stuart had been the first ones to start looking into seeing if the owners of the property would be interested in selling. Finally, this all comes together from 1986, I understand, onwards, and here we are in 2017. The state has just said, hey, we need to pull all this together by June 30th and record your conservation restrictions and deeds. Our staff, including Jessica Allen, has worked tremendously hard. I know because I saw many of the emails and was involved. Thank you very much, Jessica, for for all your hard work, and I'm happy to report we have conservation restrictions to present to the full council. The subcommittee met earlier this afternoon and voted 2-0 to recommend acceptance of the conservation restrictions. It calls for 2 separate parcels, a 10-acre parcel and a 15-acre parcel, to have conservation restrictions. The nitty-gritty is that the 10-acre parcel, Lot 3, we will purchase those rights outright, the conservation rights. Southampton will purchase all underlying fee rights to both Lots 3 and Lots 4. After Southampton purchases Lots 4 rights, they will donate to East Hampton the conservation restrictions. This all needs to happen before June 30th. So we hope that we can, in perpetuity, protect this land for our drinking water supply. The conservation restrictions allow for the siting of a future well for Southampton. They also allow for a booster pump station to be placed on the property. That booster pump would help Southampton. One of the things it would do would be to meter the water that East Hampton currently is selling to Southampton. Right now, Southampton has to run around and measure read all their meters, then go ahead, and after we stop supplying them with water, because they are now able to use their own water, they go and reread the meters, and then come back, and then we bill them for the water used. This will make it much simpler if they do go ahead and use these meters and install them. Additional protections on the land, I think, that are important include scaling back on the type of agricultural use that can be on the property. It calls for organic agricultural uses. It also calls for limited trail usage, passive recreation uses of the land. So there are lots of restrictions. I hope you've had a chance to all read this. It also calls for the latest Massachusetts Pesticide Board regulations, 333 CMR 12. So that gives us additional protections that we can enforce. I think it's a good plan. Southampton will be using $375,000 in their CPA funds. We will be using $325,000 in the previously approved CPA funds, and the state will be contributing $350,000. If anyone has any questions, I think Jessica's here, and Joe and Patty could answer in-depth further questions that you may have.
Questions on these restrictions? Okay.
Just one, which you probably can answer. The initial request we got last week said the city solicitor is currently reviewing the attached documents and then would forward changes if he needed any. And, and you may have mentioned if his review's done. I got some changes.
I did not mention that. It's a good question, and I fortunately can't answer it for you because I spoke with the city solicitor. He got all the information. He reviewed it, was in coordination with Jessica, and yes, that all has been approved by Jack.
Great.
Thank you. Good point.
Councilor Riss?
Barb, did you send us something today which was the revised?
Yep.
And that is the final version. So we did get them. Barbara sent it to us.
Councilor Riss?
And I just wanted to say, I mean, it's just been great that Southampton and East Hampton have been able to work together and put this thing forward. It's huge. So I really hope we are able to do our side of it and get this to move forward.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Kwasinski, I think you're still on.
So I would like to move in two separate motions. First, move the City Council approve the conservation restriction from the town of Southampton to the city of East Hampton for the preservation of the natural and watershed resources pursuant to MGL Chapter 184, Section 32, and shown as 10 acres in total, shown as Lot 3 in the plan entitled Plan of Land of Richard Gwinner and recorded in the Hampshire County Registry of Deeds in Plan 239, page 27.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to approve just previously read restriction. Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Riss?
One quick comment. This is a great example. Both Southampton and East Hampton CPA funds are used here to protect our water. Even though it's in Southampton, it is obviously our water that it is protecting, and I am proud to say that we in East Hampton continue to enjoy the merits of having the CPA available. The grant that we're trying to get done, the water grant, was matched by our CPA funds and Southampton CPA funds. I'm just thrilled that we can do this with the money. One of the tenets of the CPA is to protect open space, and this protects open space and, in addition, protects our water supply. Thank you.
Okay, additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Regarding Lot 4, I move the City Council approve a conservation restriction from the town of Southampton to the City of East Hampton for the preservation of natural and watershed resources pursuant to MGL Chapter 184, Section 32, and shown is 15.64 plus or minus acres in total, shown as Lot 4, in the plan entitled Plan of Land for Richard Gwinner and recorded in the Hampshire County Registry of Deeds, Plan 239, page 27.
Second.
Motion and second. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
This concludes.
Okay,
Thank you, Jeff.
great, thank you. We can now move back to order, so Finance Council Rist.
The Finance Committee met this evening and approved two transfers which are up for public hearing this evening. The Finance Committee, besides the budget, which we're going to approve, has nothing on its agenda, so we will not be meeting again in the foreseeable future in June or perhaps in July once we see the July agenda. So there are no Finance Committee meetings coming up. Thank you, that's all.
Sure. Public Safety, Councilor Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met last night on the 6th, and we met with a member of the public to talk about crosswalk safety at the Northampton, Holyoke Street intersection in front of Nini's. And we're going to be making an appointment with DPW to see if we can maybe get some paint on some crosswalks. But we haven't scheduled that yet. And we also made a motion to remove without prejudice the Mobilite pole location tower from our agenda. So I will do that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion, a second to remove the Mobilite pole location cell tower off the agenda without prejudice. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And our next meeting, due to the July 4th holiday, will be July 11th. And that will be at 6:15.
The first topic you were mentioning, is it not on the agenda, Barb? Do we need something in writing to put it
It
on?
was on, it was taken off because it was
Oh, okay.
just a discussion.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Appointments.
6:15?
Oh,
6:15. We typically used to meet at 6, but that's going to be a little tricky, so now it's first Tuesday of the month on 6:15. Do we have any business?
Yes.
Oh. I would also like to move to the agenda a request from Councilor Carey to review the school and railroad streets as possible one-way streets.
Second.
okay, a motion and second to move to public safety request from Council Care to review school and railroad streets as possible one-way streets. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appointments, I believe there's nothing, Councilor Smith? Okay. Ordinance, Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did have a joint public hearing with the planning board last night where we discussed the seasonal cottage community zoning amendment and a small change to the medical marijuana ordinance. So both of those things were discussed. The planning board and the city council ordinance subcommittee decided to continue the public hearing for the seasonal cottage community zoning. There were quite a few members of the public there that felt like they hadn't heard much about this, so we wanted to give people time and we wanted to address some of the small things in it that we thought could be addressed. So I guess I'll make this plea that if you're interested in parcels of 5 acres or more being able to put seasonal cottages for people to use as, coming to East Hampton to enjoy restaurants or activities like Cultural Chaos, then we will be meeting, and I believe we postponed we extended the hearing until, one second here, the 18th of July. So that would be at 6 p.m. in these chambers. and that is the continued public hearing for the seasonal cottage community zoning amendment. So hopefully that will get a little traction and people will know about it. And we will have our next meeting at a regular scheduled time, which is next Wednesday, the 14th at 6 p.m.
Okay. Do you want to do some extensions since our next?
Yeah,
meeting
why don't I
is-
get a blanket since we're entering the summertime
Right.
here? Why don't we get 90 days on all of those in the form of a motion?
Second.
There's a motion, a second, for a 90-day extension on those 4 items listed under other items: review of zoning ordinance 10 signs, restricting single-use plastic bags, ordinance regarding recreational marijuana, and request human rights ordinance committee. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
That concludes.
Great, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to open public hearings.
So moved.
Second.
A motion second to open public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. I believe finance, Councilor Rist.
Yes, unfortunately, it's all finance, but it is about the money, so we have to be recognize how important our job is as a council, as a check and balance for our government. The first item up for interdepartment transfer was an emergency need by the fire department for $8,500. What happened was the fire department had a fire, and there are also more calls in the ambulance, and there was an unexpected injury which created overtime issues. At this time of year, there's no extra money in anybody's budget to just move money intra-department. So this was necessary before the fiscal year ended to cover the overage. The chief is here if anybody has any questions, but this is obviously a need to cover the fire department, and there is funding in the reserve fund to cover it.
Is there anyone in the council who would like to hear from the chief for further information on this? No? Okay, if there's anyone from the public who'd like to address the council on this interdepartmental transfer, feel free to come to the podium. Okay, I don't see any. Councilor Rist.
I therefore ask the full council approve the following appropriation. The amount requested is $8,500 to be transferred from the reserve fund, $8,500 to be transferred to the fire department overtime personal services account, $7,500, and to the ambulance overtime account, personal services account, $1,000 for a total of $8,500. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to provide funds to cover an overtime shortfall.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve the interdepartmental transfer. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The second item that is an emergency is quite urgent in the sense that it is involving our water pumping capability. There is a pump generator which the DEP requires to be functional that will operate the water pumps in the event of a power failure. This failed, and to make a long story short, we need to get it fixed, and we need to get it fixed pronto. And again, the department had no other money in any other account to transfer to get it done, so until this is approved, they can't fix it. They decided, and it makes sense, that rather than purchase a brand new one for $140,000, they feel they can repair it adequately for $35,000. And although this generator is exercised, quote unquote, once a week, to even under load to make sure it works, it does not have constant operation. Therefore, a repair makes sense, since it would probably last for many years. But it is urgent, and the DPW department head is here, as well as Patty Cotton, if anybody has any questions.
Anyone from the council would like to hear from the department heads for additional information? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council concerning this appropriation? Okay, Councilor Rist.
I therefore ask the full council approve the following appropriation. The amount requested is $35,000 to be transferred from Enterprise Reserve, $30,000, and DPW Water Professional Services, $5,000, for a total of $35,000, to be transferred to Nonotuck Pump Station Generator, $35,000, for the following purpose: to provide funds for emergency repairs to the generator at the Nonotuck Pump Station.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the interdepartmental transfer of $35,000. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. All right.
The big ticket item tonight is the general budget for the department, for all departments for the city of East Hampton. I wanted to read a statement as Finance Committee Chair. It is my pleasure to announce that the Finance Committee, after extensive line-by-line review, and unanimously recommends to the Council that it approve the mayor's budget by votes of 3-0 for every department listed. The budget is up 2.49% this year, with usual modest revenue increases like the standard 2.5% property tax increase. To remind the public, that's the maximum this government is allowed to increase property taxes. It's called Prop 2.5. It was passed many moons ago, and I personally feel it's a great proposition. I would like to compliment the mayor for once again presenting a balanced budget that does not reduce staffing in any department, maintaining staff increases approved last year. She has done so with careful reorganization of departments, providing cost saving and efficiency while maintaining the services our city has come to expect. She has done so even with a large increase in healthcare costs. Those will be detailed when we get to benefits. And finally, for the second straight year, she has been able to match the school department's request, allowing for an increase of 5 positions, including 3 teachers. This budget is available for all to view online, and any questions that any taxpayer may have can be answered by department heads with a simple phone call. I say this to emphasize that our government is quite transparent and has nothing to hide, especially with regard to city finances. Give that to Barbara, please. The first item up for approval is the Department of General Government. And before I get into it, I wanted to make sure the mayor, you always provide a message to all of us, and I didn't know if you wanted to speak or just wait for each department.
Thank you, Council Rist. And my message is the very beginning of the budget. I don't want to take the time to go through and read it to you when I know you all have it in front of you and it's online. But as you know, it's a $40,360,000 budget. I'm extremely pleased with this budget. The fact, again, just to echo some of the comments, the fact that I was able to add employees back last year for essential staffing, which was very critical. And this year we're also able to sustain that and still add some additional school staffing. So I'm very pleased with that. I thank all our departments. And I also wanted to take a minute to thank the Finance Subcommittee, Councilor Rist, Councilor Carey, and Councilor Coniff. 3 very in-depth meetings, Finance Subcommittee meetings, to hash over any questions that anybody had. The department heads were there to represent the budgets. I know President McCoy was also there, and I thank you for your time in going over it, and we're extremely grateful. And of course, my thanks goes out to my staff. Without the cooperation of the staff, none of this would happen. A lot of it is because of our reconsolidating, and change is not easy for people. I totally understand that. It's necessary so that we can grow, and change will continue. And I also have special thanks for our auditor, Valerie Bernier, and our finance director, Melissa Sawatsky. Thank you.
Councilor Rist.
Okay, the first department is General Government. This department deals with the following areas: City Council, the Mayor's Office, the Licensing Board, the City Auditor, the Telephone Expenses, Assessors, Treasurer Collector Office, Computer, City Attorney, Personnel Department, City Clerk, Elections, City Planner, Building Operations, and the Manhan Rail Trail. Some of the highlights in here: the Assessors reorganization done at the behest and working with the Mayor of the Principal Assessor allowed for a reduction in that account. Staffing was reorganized and reduced, which saved a lot of money. One of my questions was, and it was answered in the positive, that there is still a lot of in-house assessment being done by our Principal Assessor. So that was an efficiency move. The Licensing Board is up. You'll see, well, it's a $600 increase, which is 50% up, and that's legislative. We approved a lot of, I forget how you call them, the short-term legislative licenses, so they've become a lot busier. Elections are down because we don't have a major election this year, just our own. The tax treasurer office, that particular office in which we combined the position as envisioned by the finance committee when the council, when the finance director position was approved many years ago, to combine the two positions as it was in many cities, that saved us another example of efficiency, and it does create a great deal of extra savings. So that's the highlights. Don't know if you have any questions or if the mayor or anybody wants to speak to the general government.
Any
If
questions?
there's questions on it.
Okay, I guess not. Counselor. Oh yeah, anyone from the public would like to address the council concerning any of those departmental budgets? Okay, Councilor Rist.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,647,815.93 for the various departments listed under Section 1, General Government, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and the finance subcommittee: Water Sewer Enterprise, $102,781.65. The Parking Fund, $5,000.
Second. A motion and a second for approval of Section 1, General Government. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Thank you. Public safety. Public safety obviously includes the police and the fire department. God bless you. The police, the fire department, crossing guards, detention, dispatch, ambulance, building inspectors, and animal control. Animal control is up. We're improving that. Otherwise, it is a increase of 2.32% over last year's budget, and staffing is maintained. We did increase, I believe, the police and fire departments last year by 1 person, and now it's maintained. There was a request in the police department. I'll ask the chief to come up and explain it, because I know I'll screw it up. In the overtime area, the police department requested a certain amount, and it was a large request, but there are some overtime and minimum manning issues. I'd like, perhaps you could explain those.
Sure. Good evening. Bob Alberti, Police Chief here in East Hampton. I'd like to thank the council for your time, and I'd like to thank the mayor's office, the finance director, the finance subcommittee, and probably most importantly, my administrative assistant, Cindy Perry, who's here, who did an amazing job really crunching numbers on our budget. And a lot of the savings that we're able to work within our parameters is due to restructuring internally. We made some moves to save some overtime. Our overtime request, although it was more than we got last year, our request itself was less than we requested the year before. So we did a lot of numbers, a lot of statistical analysis, and what we came up with was our beats, vacation, overtime, sick, and other contractual beats. We left 800 beats open last year, but those beats, we don't have minimum manning per se, but we have an unwritten minimum manning where we have a threshold where we feel that it's safe for our police officers and the community to have X number of cars on the streets per shift. So to that end, these 800 beats over the course of the year would have been actual beats. I'll give you an example. On a 4 to 12 shift, we usually have 5 officers working, typically. But we will never run our 4 to 12 shift below 4 officers. That's our unwritten minimum manning. So one of those beats, which would be one of these 800 beats of the year, would be that 5th officer that we would just not fill. So we put the request in, and we put the request in every year to try to gain some ground on filling those unfilled beats, to give us more latitude with walking beat, bicycle beats, community outreach. Although we do have some sections of the budget that we try to allow for there, the increase in the overtime was specific to beats that are left open that don't affect the public safety staffing, but give us more latitude to do more community outreach and bridge building, essentially. But we also have provisions in other parts of the budget that help make up for that. So that's the kind of a long-winded explanation of the increase in the overtime budget. But I will also say that we've done a pretty amazing job with our restructuring and restaffing to actually save overtime, where I don't have to fill a lot of these beats that go above minimum manning.
Since Chief is here, any additional questions for the Chief concerning this budget?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Under the fire department, I have to say that I was very pleased to see overtime is down. It's primarily because we hired someone, and if the chief would like to come up and highlight his budget, that was one of the areas that I particularly I'm always happy to see when we are able to reduce the fire department. Also, if you'd like to talk about dispatch, because the fire department does supervise that.
As the counselor mentioned, that we hired a person last year to bring us back on staffing. So I just, in looking at the first one under fire, the 5111 line, I'd just like to give you a little history on that. That covers our staffing. And in the narrative I provided, it breaks down that there's 4 captains who are shift supervisors, 1 captain who works in fire prevention, and 20 firefighters. In 1976, town meeting approved increasing staffing to 6 firefighters per shift because of call volume. In 1977, which required hiring 4 new firefighters. In 77, they hired 2 of the 4 they needed. 1978, they got to all 4 shifts had 6 firefighters. In 1981, Proposition 2.5 passed.
There it is.
In 88, we got back to 6-person shifts for the first time since Prop 2.5 passed. 1990 to 2003, we never got back to that level that was approved by town meeting in 1976. In fact, in 2003, we had the first layoff in the history of the East Hampton Fire Department. That started in 1854. We never had a layoff during the Depression. We had a layoff and we lost the position in 2003. We've been that way until last year, 2016, when the mayor did the mid-year supplemental because we didn't get a federal staffing grant to bring us back to all 4 shifts staffed with 6 firefighters. A process that started in 1976. Over those years, we've hit it, we've lost it. Countless thousands of dollars in overtime were spent because we were not at our minimum of 5. And with the minimum of 5, everybody's seen in the press, some of the neighboring communities that their fire departments are up in arms about their staffing levels. The minute an ambulance goes out the door, we lose those 2 firefighters for nearly an hour. A second one goes out the door, which is happening more times than not, at least twice a week. That leaves 1 firefighter in the station. We only call back in 1 additional firefighter to maintain 2. God forbid we have a fire during that time, because that leaves 2 firefighters to try and put out a fire. The fire we recently had on Oliver Street, I was fortunate all 5 firefighters are in the station, and there was 12 off-duty firefighters in the station for an EMT refresher. So I felt like some of our neighboring communities where I had 17 firefighters on scene, which you look at the house, the fire went up the siding, across the roof, never got into the house because we had 17. I'll never see that in my lifetime. But the reason for the overtime request staying level funded is that we are at staffing levels, finally, that were approved by your forefathers as a town meeting in 1976.
I wasn't here.
So kudos to the mayor for realizing that the way to cut down on overtime is to hire firefighters. Like the land purchase that started in the 80s, this is a process that started in 1976. It doesn't add, it still leaves 1 position vacant, the deputy chief, but that doesn't impact overtime. We opted to fill a position that will reduce overtime spending. Our call force is up to 5 firefighters right now. The problem, every time I hire one, to keep 5, somebody retires. I have a retirement happening in 2 weeks, so I'll be down to 4. I have to start that process over again, but they are a huge tool to saving money. And when I come to hire full-time, it's just a status change with civil service, and they're in the door. Unless there's any specific questions on the fire, I'll jump right into a quick.
Any questions specific? No? Okay.
The ambulance budget, I'll do next, the 2310. Pretty much level from last year. There's some increases due to fixed costs. I think overall, the ambulance budget is I don't remember what the increase was. Most of that is our cardiac monitors. They are an electronic piece of medical equipment that are required to be tested and calibrated every 6 months. We have one that is now 11 years old, no longer supported by warranty, so every time they come out, the cost for that maintenance has gone up, which is one of the big expenses. Any questions on the ambulance stuff?
I don't think so.
Dispatch, which is the 2170, I believe. That account is pretty level funded. We were able to add positions to that last year, which full-time positions and a part-time position, which reduced overtime costs in dispatch. We still are, compared to some of our peers, not staffed where we should be. In the very near future, the state is going to dump any 911 call made by a cell phone, goes to the state police in Northampton Barracks. Typical accident will generate about 12 911 calls. State only sends us one, unless it's somebody who has some different information. So we still get occasional landline calls for those, but we have cell phone calls. When the new, what they call next gen of 911 equipment comes out, all 911 calls, cell phone or landline based, that generate within East Hampton will be coming into our dispatch center. So if we get a really bad accident in the middle of a weekday, a dozen calls is not unheard of with 2 people answering phones. The good part, the system has a fail-safe where if we get overloaded, the calls roll over. Our backup is Hadley. We're Hadley's backup, which presents a problem. Route 9 corridor gets a lot more motor vehicle accidents than we do, generates a lot more cell phone calls. Luckily, there was foresight last year to realize that, and with the help of the mayor, we added dispatchers where pretty much every shift has 2 dispatchers to alleviate the call burden. But that's something down the road as East Hampton gets busier and more traffic, we may have to look at adding more dispatchers.
Quick question, if I may, on that. 2 dispatchers, if one calls in, do you fill that position, or do
we have
you not fill it?
On-call dispatchers that they'll bring are part-time dispatchers. There's also a utility position that can be moved to fill beats. And if it's during the day, the dispatch supervisor, instead of paying overtime, this dispatch supervisor will fill that second position.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment, the dispatch personnel, there is a small increase because they are pay plan employees. They're not unionized. I'm correct on that. And there was some step increases this year for them. So everybody knows that the fire department and the police department have union personnel, but dispatch does not.
And there was additional added from last year,
Okay.
so there's more.
There's more people, that's why the budget is up, because there's more people plus there's step increases.
Did you cover?
I think you covered everything.
Okay. Any additional last-minute questions? No? Okay, thank you, Chief. Thank you.
I just want to mention building inspections is also under this public safety, and you'll see that's down 8%, and that's because we had a new building inspector, and he's starting, not entry level, but a lower step. So his salary isn't as high as the former building inspector, which is why that's lower. Any other public?
Okay, so anyone from the public would like to address the council concerning this budget area? Okay, Councilor Rist.
I would like to move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,323,941.19 for the various departments listed under Section 2 Public Safety, and the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the Mayor and Finance Subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept Section 2 Public Safety of the budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
The next section is education. As you know, we approve the general budget for education. The specific line items are under the school committee's purview. I don't see the superintendent if you have questions, but what they requested was what they got, and it's a 2.5% increase. There's an increase of 1.73% in transportation, 2.55% in the school itself. That increase allowed them to get 5 new positions added with 3 new teachers. So for the second year in a row, I believe that's 10 positions in 2 years. And that's fantastic, as education is one of our primary reasons we exist as a public entity. So I'm very happy for that. And I'd like to invite the mayor up.
I was just going to say that they're in a meeting right downstairs.
I don't need
They'd
her.
like to be interrupted to come up if you'd like Nancy and Jill to represent their budget. They're more than happy.
Did you
to.
say they would be okay to be interrupted?
They're
If we need it.
expected to be interrupted, so we just.
Is that
ran
where
out
Melissa
of-
went, or?
Yes.
Okay,
They'll be up in.
okay.
Okay.
So
All
I'll
right.
skip to the public before the superintendent comes back. Anyone from the public like to make any comments on this budget education? Okay, then we'll,
How about if we come back to it and go to Public Works?
sounds like a good idea.
All right, we'll come back to education. Public Works. Under Public Works, the department includes administration, fuel, engineering, highway, snow and ice removal, street lights, motor repair, traffic and street improvements, recycling and hazmat, trash, the landfill, Brookside Cemetery, Main Street Cemetery, and the tree warden. That's all under Public Works. There is a slight decrease in the budget. A lot of that has to do with a 21% decrease in the landfill, which was because we don't have to test as often as we did in the past. Otherwise, the budget is quite good as far as I'm concerned. There is an expansion of Brookside Cemetery. So we went to Public Works. We'll be right back to you guys in a second. Does anybody have any questions for the DPW head or the administrator for Public Works?
Okay.
Nothing?
Anyone-
Anything you want to add, Joe? No? Okay.
Anyone from the public like to address the Public Works part of the budget? Okay, Council List.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,680,000, $503.46 for the various departments listed under Section 4 Public Works, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the Mayor and Finance Subcommittee. Water Sewer Enterprise, $368,480.66. In the sale of lots, $2,500.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for approval of Section 4 Public Works part of the budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Back to education, as I explained, I see the superintendent's here. Happily, you got exactly what you asked for, and we have 5 new positions staffed, and I'm sure you want to highlight, the business manager is also here. You just have to mention who you are.
Thank you, counselors. I'm Nancy Follansbee, Superintendent of Schools, and I have Dale Doran, our Director of Business Services, with me. And I just wanted to start off by saying that we had a very good collaborative process with the mayor in developing the budget. She listened to us, and as we described our needs, and talked with us about what the possibilities might be, so that we had some guidelines as we built our budget. We're feeling that last year we were able to make growth. As you know, there were many years when we had to make cuts every single year. And last year it felt really good to be able to put back some of those positions that we had lost in the past. So we are very appreciative of the work that the mayor did with us to get us to a budget that enabled us to continue to grow. And growth is also warranted and important because our enrollments are increasing. So despite the fact that enrollments are decreasing in most districts in this area of Massachusetts, we're fortunate enough to have our enrollments increasing. So that's a good sign of growth and positivity as well. And I'm just going to turn it over to Dale Doran. She's going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the budget. And then if you have any questions for us after, we'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. So the budget that was put together this year is what we have referred to last year and this year, same sort of principle, is an essential services budget. And what we mean by that is that it includes all of the programs, services, supplies, staffing that we believe will be necessary to serve the children we know now will be enrolled in the fall well. So it didn't look to keep services level necessarily, because there might be a change in what the needs are based on the students who will be coming. It doesn't look to keep the funding level either, and that's typically what you see. We took a good hard look at what we thought we needed to have in place to serve children well next year, and that's what we budgeted for. And as Superintendent Follansbee mentioned, this year's budget adds 5 positions that had, some of whom had been lost in previous year cuts. One of those that is being put back that had been cut previously is a custodial position at the Whitebrook Middle School. When we took a good look at the staffing levels across the district, Whitebrook is not as well staffed for the size of the building as the other buildings that we have. And we believe that the position is necessary to maintain the building in good shape. Some of that also takes into consideration the current state of Whitebrook School. It's aging. It's harder to keep clean. There are more repairs. So we think this will go a long way to help us keep the building in as good a shape as we can as we go forward for the students. The other 4 positions that it adds is a 3rd grade teacher at the elementary level, a 6th grade teacher at the middle school, an English teacher at the high school. All 3 of those positions are related to enrollment increases in order to keep class size reasonable and optimal for effective learning. And then the final position is a full-time phys ed assistant at the high school. The PE classes, because of increased enrollment at the high school, have grown, some of them quite large. Next year, they're predicting some of them may be as large as 35. And we're not comfortable that a single adult supervising 35 children in athletic pursuit is the best model. So it adds an adult to assist in those larger classes and perhaps break those into 2 smaller groups, or who knows. But we looked at the potential of adding a phys ed teacher. That's where we started, and we felt like this was a more cost-effective way to get the same kind of result, at least in the short term. So,
okay. Thank you very much. Additional questions for either school? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And I already mentioned the public, I think, once before, but I'll do it again. Anyone else from the public like to address the council on the school appropriations? No? Okay, Councilor Rist.
I'd like to mention that although we are about to fund $16,929,000 for this budget, the city pays for the benefits for all of the school department employees. The city, for some reason, the education and the city are 2 different entities. Well, I consider us all one. So what that means is the general fund for the city pays benefits. So the actual amount of money that we spend on education is close to $20 million. I don't have that exact figure. If you want it, I could ask the finance director to give it to us, but it's very close to that. Okay, so I will move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,929,214 for the various departments listed under Section 3 Education, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the mayor and the finance subcommittee.
Second?
A motion, a second, to approve Section 3 Education of the 2018 budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Section 5, Human Services. Under this department, we have the Board of Health, Council on Aging, the Veterans Agent, Veterans Benefits, and Survival Center. It has a 2% increase. There's nothing major in it. Some slight salary and step increases, but I don't recall anything that stood out as we looked at it. It's a normal budget. I don't know if the mayor would like to speak to it or if anybody has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions concerning this aspect? I can call either or no. Okay, anyone from the public would like to address the council on this area? Okay, I guess not, Councilor Rist.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $635,967.25 for the various departments listed under Section 5 Human Services, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations as recommended by the Mayor and Finance Subcommittee. Somebody second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, for approval of Section 5 Human Services for the 2018 budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Now turn it over to Councilor Carey for the next departments. Thank you.
Section 6, Cultural and Recreation, includes Emily Williston Library, Recreation, Community Center, Parks, Memorial, and Veterans Day. Up across the board, a total of 2.4, and the parks are up 3.78, and that's due to staffing, seasonal employees and permanent employees. We also have a representative from the library who would like to address the council.
Rayma, would you like to come up, please?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Rayma Hutchinson. I am the president of the Public Library Association of East Hampton. We are the nonprofit organization that owns and operates the library. I'd like to thank the mayor and the finance director and the finance committee. The library has been funded by the city under a contract. We have very good working relations with the mayor's office. The mayor and I meet quite frequently, and we're very happy about things. I wanted to speak tonight because we put in, for our budget request, a number that was surprising to a lot of people, not the mayor, but to the council, shall we say, and the public in general. And what that number represented was the operating costs of providing library services to the citizens of East Hampton. What the city provides is funding that allows us to be certified, which is very important. It covers mostly it covers our staffing and some book orders and stuff. But we just felt it was maybe time to let the public, the council, the government know that the Emily Williston Library is provides a lot more services than people might recognize. Most people do not understand that there's a nonprofit that also is involved. We provide about a third of the funding. We take, of course, the number that was presented did not include any building expenses. We own that building. But we also provide other programming and other ways to make sure that the library services all people. I like to say we service everybody, cradle to grave. If you're a newborn baby and you are starting to reach out for something, we've got the board book for you. And if you can't see anymore and you're an old lady like me, we've got audio books, or we have picture books that are really good for old people too. So we have lots of things that we do. 1,600 people come to the library every week. We check out each week 1,340 books, 222 CDs, 450 DVDs, 18 video games, 12 magazines, 222 ebooks and audiobooks. And we provide programs free of charge for children, teens, adults. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity, and I appreciate the opportunity to let everybody know that what the library does for the city, and that we're a nonprofit. And so over the last couple of years, we have started to raise our profile and start to do public solicitation of money to provide for funding and programs so that we'll be able to expand what we do for the public. So I'm just hoping that everybody will understand when the Emily Williston Library is having a fundraiser, everybody should come and support it, because all that money goes right back into something you'll need someday. And I also wanted to say that we provide free internet access. And if you come into the library, you will see every single computer used by people who cannot access the internet at their homes. So we really feel we do a great service. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone up here? Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I don't think any I don't see any counselors have questions. We all enjoyed your talk very much, so thank you for your time. Councilor Riss?
I just wanted to make sure people understand.
We did.
The department asked for $307,000, was funded $208,000, and that ask was simply to tell us how much it costs to operate it. It wasn't that the mayor cut the library. It's very important to understand. In fact, the mayor's budget increases the library amount by $3,000 from last year to this year. That was simply a way of Rhema telling us all that this is what their volunteer group raises, almost $100,000 in addition to what the city funds to support the library, and I compliment you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Carey?
Are you prepared for a motion?
No, do you have anything more to add?
No.
Okay. So if there's anyone from the public who'd like to address the council concerning this appropriation, please feel free to come up. Okay, now I'd say now I guess we're ready for motion, Councilor Carey.
Thank you. I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $543,170.76 for the various departments listed under Section 6, Cultural and Recreation, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amount to be transferred, as recommended by the mayor and the Finance Subcommittee: Emily Williston Library donation account, $10,000.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve Section 6, Cultural and Recreation. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Section 7 is debt services. There's 3 categories fall under there: MCWT credits, debt principal, and debt interest. You'll see this is down 8.1%. That has to do with the public safety complex coming off the books, as well as debt decreasing. And specific questions, I think I would ask you to ask the finance director instead of myself.
Okay.
You'll get a better answer.
Does anyone have any specific questions concerning our city debt that we could ask for the finance director, or do you? Okay, I guess not. Okay. Anyone from the public who would like to address the council concerning this portion of the budget? Okay, Councilor Carey.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,182,079.75 for the various departments listed under Section 7 debt, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred or raised as recommended by the mayor and the Finance Subcommittee: Water Sewer Enterprise, $519,065.60. Debt exclusion taxation to be reduced by reserves for amortization, $3,310.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Section 7 debt of the 2018 budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Section 8, employee benefits. It includes retirement, workers' compensation, Medicare tax, Chapter 32B, GASB 45, liability insurance, reserve fund, unemployment. You see that that's up 6.9% overall, with unemployment down 28.5%, workers' compensation up 11.74%, Chapter 32B up 9.67%. That's healthcare. The reserve fund you see is also listed here, that $200,000, which has been in this section for the last 2 years. So this includes all the health care and for retirees as well.
Okay, is anyone, Councilor Riss?
I just wanted to comment that we've been able to maintain our Chapter 32 healthcare costs over the previous years because the trust, which is a Hampshire County collective trust that we use, has been able to use their trust funds to help keep premiums down, but they've not been able to do that. So this increase is very large, considering in previous years it was almost nothing. But fortunately, we have other decreases that compensate for that. But our insurance that we offer is a premium insurance, very good insurance for our employees, at a lot less cost than it would be if we were out on the open market.
Okay, is there anyone, Mayor Katcher?
Thank you, Councilor Rist. And I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on that, but I did want to address it, seeing how that's a gigantic increase. You know, when you look at your percentages, 9.67 of a small budget, it depends on the amount. This is one of our largest budgets. So this one, you know, when you look at where we have to make cuts and where we have to provide our funding, this is where it goes. So, but I do want the councilors to know and the public to know that we are in the Hampshire Trust, and this plan, even though the trust has basically eaten a lot of the increases over the years. I think you'll recall many years we had 0 increase, and for health insurance that's pretty rare. This year we have to absorb, you know, the exorbitant costs, but I do want you to know that we also compare plans. Even though we're in the trust, I did ask the administrator to provide us with comparable plans, and in that being was the GIC, because I think that's probably the most common one that people think of when they think of saving money on insurance. You think of the GIC. Well, the GIC, it's hard to call it a comparable plan because it doesn't match our plan in any way, shape, or form. As to, like, there's large deductibles, large out-of-pocket expenses. So our plan is a much better plan and was cheaper. So I thought that you would want to know that we do our due diligence to research, you know, are there savings in any other plans? And but employee benefits are exactly that. They're a benefit, and a lot of people, it's an attraction. It's where, you know, we feel that most of us are 4 days here, which is a huge attraction to employees. Benefits are something that's very important. The benefits you get from an employer are very important. But I did want you to know that even with this increase, it was still cheaper than the GIC and a much better plan. We don't have those high deductibles and out-of-pocket costs. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate.
And then just for clarification, GIC is basically the health care offered through state employees.
Right, and you'll hear, like, whenever you hear people trying to get savings, you know, you'll hear the GIC. So what I wanted to do is use a plan that people are very familiar with, but again, even though we're in the trust, and because we're in the trust with this, it's a group, so we're able to save a lot of costs, and we're not rated individually, it's rated across the board, so they all share the ratings of any of the communities, and we're one of the largest ones, so it has worked really well for the city.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions from Mayor concerning this? No? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone from the public who would like to address the council concerning the appropriation for employee benefits? No, Councilor Carey.
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $8,503,420.50 for the various departments listed under Section 8 Employee Benefits, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and finance subcommittee. Water Sewer Enterprise, $628,964.64.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Section 8 Employee Benefits. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain? Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay.
Section 9 is Community Preservation. The Community Preservation Act includes undesignated open space, historical, housing, administration, and the reserve fund. As you can see, as you know, we need to give a certain amount to open space, historical, and housing, and so you can see that listed here as $75,000 set aside for each of those, and then so those are up, that's 7.14%. And the reserve fund down just 1.35%, overall increase of 2.53%. And of course, this all depends on how the returns come back, and I'm sure Councilor Rist would like to tell us about that.
Councilor Rist?
Well, the Community Preservation Act, with recommendation from our administrator, did use a budget that was counting on a 20% match from the state, and that's with all rounds, the first match being 15. The state has announced that the first round match will be reduced to 15%, but we've got it covered because there's still a second and third round, which we're entitled to because we have a 3% taxation on CPA. But so that the $486,000 is still safe, even though they've reduced that amount, and it is a conservative budget. I'm hopeful, I haven't heard yet, I'm hopeful that they'll increase that match. It's in conference committee. The Senate voted to increase it to, I think, 30% match. So we're hopeful we'll get a bigger increase next year.
Okay. Additional questions or comments from the counselor? I don't see Jamie here. Anyone from the public who would like to address the council concerning the CPA budget? Okay. Councilor Carey?
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $486,000 for the various departments listed under Section 9 Community Preservation, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the total amount to be raised and appropriated from the Community Preservation Fund as recommended by the mayor and Finance Subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve Section 9 Community Preservation, a portion of the 2018 budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Section 10, Enterprise, that includes sewer capital, wastewater treatment plant capital, wastewater treatment plant sewer reserve, water reserve, and water capital. And there you see minor increases in sewer and wastewater treatment for an overall increase of 2.13.
Okay, anyone from the city or any questions for anyone from the city, from DPW about any of this budget? Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council concerning this appropriation for the budget? Councilor Carey?
I move that the city vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,375,247.65 for the various departments listed under Section 10 Enterprise, and that the amounts listed in the mayor's printed report, unless amended, be considered specific appropriations, with the following amounts to be transferred as recommended by the mayor and Finance Subcommittee. Water Sewer Enterprise, $2,375,247.65.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve Section 10 Enterprise of 2018 budget. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. I guess that concludes the budget. I'll entertain a motion
Motion to move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. I believe we're almost through, I guess, just rules and government
I
relations.
have no report,
There's
Mr.
no
President.
report. This is a reminder that we're going to summer session, so we meet once a month now for July and August. Next meeting will be July 12th in these chambers, because the first Tuesday is the 5th, so we moved it to the 12th. But with that information, unless anyone has any more questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
We have a lot to sign, everybody.